Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Alliance Gator X Turf Takeoff class that we're going to be putting on. The third part of our three-part series on Alliance Gator X Turf. I'm here with Mike Huber.
Good afternoon, everybody. Well, at least on the East Coast. Good morning to those on the West Coast.
So, Mike, we are going to be tackling the Turf Takeoff today.
Turf Takeoff, right?
Correct. And this is going to tell us how to prepare prior to installing the turf. You've already covered how to install the turf. So.
Right. We did two classes already. Basic turf installation, taught everybody how to do a seam in turf, make that look invisible. And then we did an advanced turf class, talking more about that checkerboard or inlay that everybody wants to do. And we showed people how to install a putting green, which is pretty complicated.
Right. Some very good content on those first two classes. So be sure to go back and check those out, brush up on that information. But today we're really focusing on the takeoff, the planning phase.
So estimating, maybe not the most exciting topic in the world, but we're going to try to make it fun here. We've got a checklist that we're going to go through here, a kind of comprehensive list of everything that you need to look at to make sure that you are covering all your bases when you're going to plan a turf project.
Let's take a look at that agenda and see what we're going to be covering here today, Mike. So first and foremost, this is the site walkthrough checklist.
That's what I just told everybody, AJ.
That's right, and I'm summarizing now. So that checklist is going to be sent to you after this class. So this is a thorough, comprehensive checklist that we're going to go through, and then we'll share with you at the end of the training.
And then once we get through that checklist, we're going to go through 3 different turf projects. So we've got a couple of nice designs that show the X turf, and we'll walk you through how to estimate them. What roll sizes you're going to need, how much infill, how many spikes, all that good stuff, so that you get the right materials out to the job site, and you're able to put them together and have that job turn out looking great.
All right, and then it looks like Professor Mike has some homework for us all today. We're going to send you home with a project to work on a takeoff, and if you send that in to us, you'll see how to at the end of the class. You'll be entered for a raffle.
All right, so why don't we take a look at an actual turf project here, AJ? This might be something that you're envisioning building in your backyard, right?
All right, let's take a look.
What do you think?
Looks good, Mike. Looks good. I don't have a pool. I don't have any pavers, but I could envision that in my backyard.
All right. So we're going to have to make sure that we order the materials correctly. So it's going to take a little bit of thought. We can't just, show up at the dealer, say we need 7.5 by 25 foot rolls. We need 6 of them and make it work. Right. It's not quite like pavers. It's not as modular. We've got larger pieces. We're going to have to trim them, cut them, seam them together, cover that whole area, make sure the orientation's correct. So why don't we start getting into this checklist here, AJ?
Get into this checklist because this is going to help us to offset a lot of the challenges that you could encounter in a turf installation before we encounter them.
All right, so site walkthrough checklist. If I take this out to the job site, it's going to give me all the answers?
It's a great tool. It's a great way to get started. So the first item on that checklist is taking into consideration job site access and the conditions of that job site, right?
Right. Every job site's different. Are we working in a row of townhouses? We got to go around a bunch of other people's backyards to get to our site. Do we have fences, steps, elevation changes that we need to deal with? Or is it just wide open new construction? That's going to dictate what size rolls we can bring in there and how easy it's going to be to do.
Well, you said it, Mike, especially if we have to, if we're going to be using one of those 15 by 100 foot rolls and we're in between townhouses, things are going to get dicey.
Yeah, those 15 by 100 foot rolls are tough to move around. Luckily, we've got some more convenient roll sizes that are easy to throw in the back of a truck. A 7.5 by 25 that I think even you can carry around, right?
I could lug that around. The 7.5 by 25, the 7.5 by 50. But what do you got there, Mike? I see you under that big roll.
That is a 15 by 60. We actually cut 40 feet off of that 100-foot roll, and we were still struggling to carry it.
Right.
How much do you think that weighs? 15 by 100 foot premium X turf.
Sounds like a question for our audience, Mike, as opposed to me stumbling through that.
All right, let's ask them and see what everyone thinks. Is that 15 by 100 foot roll 500 pounds, 1,000 pounds, 2,000, or 3,000 pounds?
I'll be honest with you, it doesn't really matter what the answer is. I'm not going to be able to do anything with any of those. So,
well, I think 3 or 4 guys, you could handle 500 pounds with ease, right?
Okay, yeah, I guess that's true.
All right, so it looks like the majority rules here. 50% have said 1,000 pounds. That's the weight.
Okay.
So we're 1,000 pounds for a 15 by 100 foot roll, and that's awkward, heavy, tough to move around. Even if you have a skid steer on site, you can pick up a 3,000-pound pallet of pavers and get it to the job site.
Sure.
What about 15 feet wide? You might hit something on the end.
You're going to have some real challenges. So the first thing to take in consideration is that job site access. And you have to be mindful of how we can get this into the backyard, where we can lay this out, right?
Right. It's quite possible that we might have a fence or objects in the way that we're trying to work around in the backyard.
Right.
So we might need an area, say the driveway of the house or the front lawn, to be able to roll the turf out and kind of rough it into size first before we roll it back up and maneuver it into the backyard.
Okay, so that is the first step of this planning phase. And you touched on, Mike, step 2, which is obstructions and existing features that are there in the backyard that we're going to have to work around, right?
Right. Many fences, around the perimeter. You might have, pool, a deck already. The hardscaping might be in.
Yep.
Any number of obstacles that you have to work around. You had a hot tub you were trying to roll over, right?
Right. So a real life experience that we had was we've got the roll back there and we're rolling it out, and there's a hot tub and we're going between the hot tub and the house. So that added to the manpower that we needed. We had to pull that up tight. We had to get it to where we could cut it. But that obstruction of the hot tub presented an interesting challenge on the install.
Right. So accounting for that ahead of time can make your life a lot easier. Maybe it makes sense to use 2 smaller rolls rather than 1 large roll, or kind of pre-cut that to size off-site or in the driveway before you get it into the backyard. And you might also have irrigation lines that need to be removed, simple things like that that you have to kind of anticipate when you're planning your turf project.
So if you're going out there before we're doing base or we're laying turf, we're taking these things into consideration in the planning phase. And that's a great idea, and that's a great place to start. So we've touched on job site access and conditions, as well as obstructions and existing features. And step 3, and the third thing we need to take into consideration, is the project size and the layout of that project.
All right, so now we're actually going to look at the turf areas themselves, right?
Right.
What do these look like? Are they rectangular? That makes life pretty easy, right?
Sure.
Are they within an Alliance roll size? That would certainly make life easy. 7.5 by 25, if we were doing a 7-foot by 24-foot turf area.
Right.
That's easy.
Right. And so that is a little trick of the trade there. If you know the roll sizes, which we will tell you, you can try to design within those roll sizes and make your life a little bit easier, right?
But many times we've got areas that we need to fill that are not quite convenient to match up to Alliance roll sizes. Nobody really has just square blocks of turf all over the place, right? So oftentimes there's going to be curves and contours. There's going to be irregular shapes, especially when you get into putting greens. They all seem to want some goofy kidney bean shape, right?
So, Mike, what would be a good rule of thumb for how much waste I could anticipate in terms of the artificial turf? Pavers, there's rules for that, but what would you be thinking in terms of percentage of waste on a project?
Well, I think every hardscape contractor knows that you typically account for maybe 5% waste for a simple run-of-the-mill job, maybe 10% waste is something that has a lot of curves, a serpentine walkway. Pavers are modular. You're not losing a lot of material.
Okay.
But turf, you're working with larger rolls, 7.5 by 25, all the way up to that 15 by 100. If you're cutting a curve out, it's quite possible you're not going to be able to use that somewhere else.
Right.
So the turf waste is a little bit different. Let's ask our audience and see what they think, AJ.
See what they have to say. So
is the waste factor for turf 5%, 10%, 15, 20, or 25%, AJ?
I like that 10%, but you did make some good points about the modular paver in comparison to a big roll of turf. And then it also depends on what you're doing. If you're cutting that checkerboard out that you guys taught us how to do, or you're fringing around a putting green, there's going to be a lot of waste. There's no 2 ways around that.
All right, well, that wasn't a fair question. That was really a trick, AJ.
That's on Mike. That's on Mike.
We really feel that using a waste factor isn't appropriate for ordering your turf. 500 square feet of pavers, go ahead, order 550 square feet. You'll be good, right?
Probably be good, yeah.
500 square feet of turf, you might need 700, 800, 1,000 square feet of turf to do that 500 square foot turf job. Your waste could range anywhere from 5% to 75%. So really a big unknown. You have to do a physical takeoff of the plans to figure out how much turf you need to order.
Well, luckily, that's what we're here for today, Mike. So we've taken that into consideration, the shape and the layout of this project now. And we're out on the project before we're doing this. We're making notes. The fourth thing that we want to make sure that we address is the turf orientation, which you touched on 2 weeks ago in the other class, and the seams that are going to be used on this project.
Right. Turf orientation is key. When turf is manufactured and rolled up tightly, all those blades of grass are kind of laying down in one direction. And we need to make sure that whenever possible, all the blades of grass on a project are all laying in the same direction, right? If all those grass blades are laying in the same direction, the color and appearance is going to be very uniform. If you start turning pieces 90 degrees, 45 degrees, butting them up to each other, you're going to have visible differences where it looks like you put a piece of forest green next to a piece of lime green, AJ.
Right, and that's not going to fly. So the reality of that is it sounds simple, but we need to lay these out and take a look and plan out our thing to make sure that the orientation of those blades, where we can, is going in the same direction so that we can get paid and get off this job.
And the seams are very important as well, right?
Absolutely.
We want to make sure that we're seaming and we're doing it in a fashion that maybe isn't in a visible line of sight. You know, try to hide those seams when possible. And we want to do shorter seams when we can. So shorter seams are much easier to manage and create a very invisible look than a much longer seam. So kind of minimize those seams in terms of length. We want to create seams that are out of the line of sight. And when you're talking about doing all of these seams, you got to account for some time in that process too. You know?
I would assume, I've seen your seaming demo, and you make it look easy when you take those two little pieces and seam it. But on a project, that is going to take some time, and that is worth considering. I found that seaming is really the first and the most challenging part of a turf install a lot of times.
Right, and there are some key things to keep in mind with that. When we're doing seaming along the edge of a roll is pretty easy. We can make a nearly invisible seam. Seaming the butt end of a roll to an edge or seaming two butt ends together starts to get a little bit tricky.
You can spend a lot of time and energy on that, and it's still not going to look great.
Right.
So we're trying to help with that design and that planning phase to eliminate that totally.
Right, make sure that we're seaming edge to edge, making our project wider, and not doing end to end, trying to make our project longer.
And the good part about this exercise that we're going to go through today, including the easy, medium, and hard turf takeoffs that we're going to do, is you're going to have the information long before you're putting together this project. So we're going to know where those seams are, we're going to know how long those seams are, and we're going to have a materials list to make sure we have everything we need to execute.
All right, so once we've kind of thought about our layout a little bit, we have to actually select our turf rolls, right? We got to select classic or premium, forest or lime green, and what individual rolls we're buying. Are we getting two 25-footers? Are we getting a 15 by 33 and a 7.5 by 50 to make this whole layout work?
Right.
We've got to go to the dealer and order our material, AJ.
And that takes you back a little bit to your first turf classes, familiarizing yourself with the product line. We've got two blends, the premium and the classic. We've got two colors, the forest green and the lime green, and you want to make sure that we're going to have enough turf and that we're going to have the right roll sizes to execute the way that we're making the plan for.
And then we just threw in a little reminder here about the proper prep, right? We're not just rolling turf out over dirt, calling it a day, AJ.
Right. You're going to absolutely, you're going to have to build a base. And you guys are paver guys. A lot of the time, you guys are doing hardscape installations. It's a similar base. It's 4 to 6 inches of compacted crushed stone. We like that setting bed to be compacted stone dust screenings, which is a little counterintuitive in the hardscape industry.
Right,
but
we don't like the screenings for pavers. It traps moisture, not good for polymeric sand joints or pavers with efflorescence, but with turf, it provides a nice solid foundation underneath.
Absolutely, and so we cover all this in the previous classes, but this is just a reminder that you need to take into consideration both the materials as well as the time to build that base for your turf install.
And one more reminder about base, if you're going to do hybrid base, right, clean stone, use a 1/4-inch chip for your setting bed, not a 3/8-inch stone that's going to be more stable underfoot, and realize that you're going to have to come up with some alternative ways to hold the turf down. In regular traditional installs with that dense grade base, we typically use spikes to hold everything down. Hybrid base, we're going to have to bury a ledger board of some kind to nail or staple it down, or trench in a little bit of a concrete curb to glue our turf down. So some additional considerations there. And then the last aspect of that is the infill, AJ. Infill is really important for turf.
Right.
Sure, you could do turf and skip the infill step, but it's not going to last as long or perform as well. That infill helps to physically ballast or weight down the turf, protect the backing, hold those blades upright, provide shock absorption, and promote proper drainage and air circulation. So infill's key, and how much of it are we looking for, AJ?
Well, you said it. It sounds like the infill's accomplishing more than one thing, right? It's not just there to weigh the turf down. It's also keeping the blades up. It helps with drainage. But the rule of thumb for infill is you're going to be, and it depends on your blend, right? Your premium or your classic, But on a classic blend turf that we're selling, whether lime green or forest green, you're going to be 2 pounds per square foot on an average. And with the premium blend, because of the more thatch and some more substantial material, we go upwards to 3 pounds per square foot.
Right. General range is 1.5 to 3 pounds. As AJ said, you're probably closer to 2 on classic and closer to 3 on the premium there. So number 6 on our checklist, we might be talking about specific concerns with edging and the perimeter of our turf project, right, AJ?
Right, and so that's something you're going to want to take into consideration. And this is where we're helping to teach you guys. We want to be a part of your installation. We want to share what we have, but there are other things out there, and you can get creative. But it is not a bad idea to use a concrete edge or a pressure-treated lumber or a nailing board or something that you could adhere the perimeter of this turf install to. It adds to the nice professional finish of your turf.
Right. There's nothing wrong with simply nailing your turf down over a traditional base, but if you've got an area of maybe heavy traffic where people are going to be walking on and off the turf all the time, or where it meets up to a softer, more unstable material like regular grass, you might want to have something a little bit more secure. So consider a more substantial permanent edging option along those areas.
And you've covered some of those in your other turf classes as well, the different options. So again, go back and check those out. So we've talked about the edging and the perimeter details. What about the manpower and the planning for this, Mike?
Well, that's a key consideration. We got to have the right materials on site, but we have to have the right number of people there to install it. So if we're doing a simple 7.5 by 25 rectangle, AJ and I can go out there and tackle it on our own.
Okay,
right?
Good to hear.
If we have to do something larger, if we have to start seaming pieces together, you're going to need more people, right? So the more complicated the project, the more bodies you need. If you're doing a larger turf install, I think 4 is the absolute minimum, AJ.
Okay, and so you're talking about enough guys to get that roll to the back.
All right, so you might need more than 4.
Right off the bat. And then you're talking about enough guys that seaming part, depending on the size of that seam, I like to have bare minimum 2, but really 3 or 4 guys, all hands on deck when we're putting together that zipper essentially for that seam, and you got a guy making sure that the seam tape is not kicked up and you're not getting glue everywhere.
Right. I think you really need at least 2 people right there putting the seam together, one working each side, and then you need 2 people holding up the rest of the turf to make sure it doesn't flop over, fall on top of your seam, get ahead of yourself there, right?
And we also talked already about infilling, and we haven't touched on spikes, but the infilling and the spikes, while simple, are going to take some time. So if you had 2 guys maybe with drop spreaders on a large job applying infill, you're going to be more efficient, and 2 or 3 guys putting spikes, because we do use a lot of spikes in an artificial turf install.
Yeah, we're going to estimate that in a little bit, but you'll see quite a few spikes go into a project like this. And then the last part of that planning phase is just making sure that you account for enough time. You might think that kicking out a roll of turf is going to go a lot faster than laying pavers, but if you've got a more complicated layout, checkerboard or inlay, or many seams to do, laying turf down is going to take you just as long as physically laying pavers down. So don't think this is 2 hours on a Friday afternoon to get 500 square feet of turf down. Right.
So be mindful of that, and that's part of the planning is, what are those obstructions? What is this design? What is the shape? What type of cuts are we going to make? And take that into consideration when you're bidding on this project.
All right, last thing to keep in mind when planning your project is having the appropriate tools. So fortunately, you've already got everything that you need for the base prep if you're installing pavers. But we've got a couple extra things here, scissors and carpet cutters, many utility knives, and plenty of sharp blades. What else do we need, AJ?
Well, you also need your knee kicker, your carpet kicker. You're going to need your drop spreader. You're going to need your power broom for the infill. And experiment with these things. I bought some scissors that I felt were really nice, that worked good for cutting turf, specifically that checkerboard pattern. Mike hates those scissors. So the big one is enough blades for your knife. There's no point in taking a premium project like this and struggling with a dull blade trying to cut through the back of that turf. Keep some blades on hand and change them out as necessary.
But it's not a huge investment, right? You can get all those tools that we just pictured for what, maybe $1,500? You got everything you need to do a proper turf installation. But if you don't have those tools, you're really going to struggle.
All right. So, Mike, we have covered 7 different elements that we need to take into consideration when we're building our takeoff and our materials list. And again, we're going to send this to you guys so you can have this and have this comprehensive list and run through this.
That's awful nice of you, AJ.
I'll tell you what.
Any charge for that?
I'll tell you what. Free.
All right.
throw in a bag of polysand.
We've got Logan standing by, and Logan's manning the chat looking for questions. Do we have any questions coming up, Logan?
We have no questions so far. Looks like a smart group.
Or we're just doing such a good job explaining it that there's no questions.
Beautiful. So I think we will get some questions on the next part of this training. So we're going to get into how to do one of these takeoffs. I like the first one, Mike. The first one seemed pretty easy.
All right, well, let's take a look at this first job site. Now, these designs were done for us by Kyle Needham of Needham Outdoor Designs. He's a friend of ours out in Illinois. We'll send you a little bit of his contact information. He's doing some consulting work to help people kind of grow and optimize their hardscape businesses, but he knows a lot about the business, and these designs are fantastic, AJ.
Big thank you to Kyle for doing a little homework for us.
All right, so let's take a look at this first project. This is looks really simple, AJ. We've got some turf in an L shape around the pool here. I can simply get 2 rolls that are 7.5 wide because we're only 6.5 wide.
Right.
So if I were to cut it off here, maybe we do 1 roll this way and we do 1 roll this way, and minimal seams, minimal work.
That's what I was going to suggest, Mike, but I was going to wait for you to give me a smart guy reason as to why that wouldn't work, and I think I've already figured it out. So we talked about the blade orientation, right?
We did.
We touched on that. So if I look at that and I roll my first one out long ways and I run that second one down, up and down, you're not going to get away with that in a turf install, right?
Right. You're going to have a goofy look where those two meet. It's
Yeah.
almost going to look like you use 2 different colors of turf.
Not going to fly.
Not going to fly. I wouldn't want to pay for that. So let's cancel that idea.
Would have been easy.
What do we have here? We got 32 feet long along the bottom.
Okay.
So that could be a good fit for a 33-foot wide roll.
We do have that 15 by 33 foot roll.
So what if we were talking about using a 33-foot wide roll here? It's 15 feet wide. We got 6.5, so that leaves us, somewhere in the neighborhood of 7.5, 8 feet left over, right? So we got 8 feet of that roll left over.
Okay.
By 33.
And now we have to attack that second piece, keeping blade orientation in mind.
All right, so let's say that our blade orientation is going that direction,
All right.
So now we need to keep our blade orientation going that direction throughout the entire project.
Okay. And you have a piece after that first piece has been laid that's 8 foot by 33 feet.
Yep,
left
and then
over.
let's see, we got 38 minus 6, so we got about 30, a little less than 32 feet right here.
Right.
So that's 32. So let's see, we got 33 feet worth of turf. So if we just cut that into chunks, we can
You're
make
going to
this
be able
work,
to piece
AJ.
that together.
So we got 8 foot, 8 foot, 8 foot. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of turf here. We run them this way.
4 seams.
4 seams, not the end of the world. They're short. They're only 6.5 feet wide, so they're pretty easy to line up.
Yeah.
Make a nice invisible seam.
I would agree. When you draw that out, having a little bit of experience now with turf, I could tell you we could execute that. But my one question would be, you had touched on putting these seams in a place that makes sense. I see some nice, expensive lawn chairs there. Are we going to want to put those seams there?
It kind of depends. You do want to minimize your direct view lengthwise down a seam.
Okay.
I don't know if these chairs here are going to be the place where people are most commonly sitting, or if this is the house in here or a sitting area that's kind of covered, that may be the most common place. So that would be a judgment call based on your understanding of where people are going to hang out the most.
Okay, so that's maybe a conversation between the contractor and the homeowner. But looking at that right off the bat, that looks doable. I could see us making that look good. And we have a second option. So a backup plan, if they say, hey, this is where we're partying, this is where we're hanging out, we could essentially flip that, right, Mike?
Right, we could reverse it. We could do our longer, full piece of turf over here.
Yeah.
We change it to a different color, right? We could do it over here.
Yep.
And then we could kind of chunk this piece in.
Same concept.
Same concept, just reversed. as you
Keeping the
mentioned.
blade orientation in mind.
All right, so I think we're pretty well set on our turf roll there. We get a 15 by 33, and we're good to go, AJ.
1 roll to execute that. I like that. Easy to order, right?
Yeah, a little tough to move around, right? Probably have to have a trailer, not
Sure,
sitting in the back of a pickup truck.
So that is one option, and we've already realized that with that 1 roll, we really have 2 options, right?
All right, so we got 2 options there. We're also going to need a few accessories, right? We need seam tape. We got seams there. We need glue. We're going to need nails and infill. So seam-wise, we've got, 1, 2, 4 seams at 8 feet. So
Yep.
we had about 32 feet of seam, maybe a
Okay.
little bit longer. So call it 40. Seam tape comes in what?
100-foot roll or a 300-foot roll, so we'll have plenty of seam tape.
All right, so 1 roll, we got plenty of seam tape. XP adhesive, best adhesive out there to put your turf together, right? Stronger than anything else out there, much easier to apply, convenient amounts for a project, and you probably already have it on hand.
Probably already have it on hand. If you don't, get in contact with your Alliance rep. And when you're using that 28-ounce tube on a turf install, you're going to get about 20 linear feet out of a 28-ounce tube for a turf installation.
All right, so we said we got 40 feet. So we buy 2 tubes, maybe 3 to be safe.
Yeah, buy a box. Yeah, throw us a bone.
We'll be good. All right, so we got our seams and our glue all
Okay.
squared away. Now we need some nails.
Let's go-
6-inch Gator turf spikes, right?
Right. And you've got a pretty easy formula to figure that out, Mike, right?
Very simple. 0.7 per square foot.
Okay.
So how many square feet do we have at your age? Are you going to count the boxes for me?
I was going to start counting, but
We got about, what, 410 square feet,
Okay.
according to our calculations.
So multiplied by 0.7 gives you,
Yeah, somewhere around 290 spikes.
I was going to pull the audience because I wasn't going to get there, but yeah, so the square footage of the turf being installed times 0.7 will tell you pretty accurately how many nails you're going to need for the project.
All right, so 290 spikes. That's what, like 2 boxes?
Less than a box. So 700 in a box, I believe.
All right, so you get a lot more turf spikes in a box than you get your regular 10-inch spikes for your plastic edging, right?
Yep. And we don't sell half boxes. So get you a box of X-Turf spikes. That'll cover your basis is on this, and you'll have some extra. And then the last thing to consider is the infill sand.
All right, so infill. We've got 3 different options there. We've got our beige, our green, and our Zeo white. Beige and green, just different colors.
Yep.
Zeo white has some odor absorbing and cooling properties along with it. But one thing that we need to decide here, AJ, is what kind of turf did we go with? Did we go with classic or premium on this job?
Okay, so this looks like all jobs designed by Kyle Needham, a very premium, high grade installation.
All right, they wanted that ultra soft,
They need the
extra
premium.
durable,
Yeah,
really nice turf, right?
So we were talking premium gets 2.5 to 3 pounds per square foot, right?
Yeah, let's call it 3. We don't want to cheap out now.
And it's easier math for me. I'm on camera. So 400 square feet, 3 pounds per square foot, 1,200 pounds of infill, right?
All right, so 1,200 pounds of infill there. So, all right, that's pretty easy. 1,200 pounds. How many bags is that? They come in 50-pound bags, AJ.
50-pound bags, 1,200 divided by 50. I had a guess earlier. I don't remember.
All right, how about 24 bags of infill?
I'll take his word
Go
on
with
that.
24
Yeah,
bags?
Yeah.
What about Zeo white? Zeo white's only a 40-pound bag, AJ.
Right. So that's going to change things, right?
No, it's actually not going to change things. Even though Zeo white is 40 pounds, it has a lower density, so you still get the same volume.
Good to know.
24 bags of beige or green or 24 bags of Zeo white. You could also do 12 bags of beige or green and top it with some Zeo white.
Okay.
That's an option as well.
All right. So now we've got our turf roll, singular roll in
All
this
right.
case.
Yep. So we're going with a 15 by 33.
Right.
Then we've got 1 roll of seam tape.
Easy.
How much glue?
Two cases. I'm sorry.
Two cases? You're really trying to upsell them, huh?
2 tubes of glue.
All right. How many spikes?
What did we come up with on spikes?
290. So 1 box.
Yep. 1 box of spikes.
All right. I ran out of room there, but that's okay. And then how much infill?
24 bags of infill.
So what if I said, I'm not going to buy your infill, AJ. I'm just going to go get a ton of sand down at the dealer. They got this nice masonry sand that'll work.
You're going to take this beautiful project and you're going to make a pretty big mistake on the last step of it and cause yourself some problems. That stuff's going to get stuck and not be easy to manipulate or move around.
Yeah, it's really going to compact and it's going to be hard underfoot. One of the nice things about Alliance infill sands is that they're round and fluffy. So we're going to get higher density. It's going to hold those blades up better, give you better shock absorption and better drainage. So your X-Turf job's going to come out a lot better if you buy the right infill.
And that would be, in my guess, a pretty crazy gamble to take at the end of the project. You've already spent the money. 24 bags of infill is not going to break the bank.
All right, so moving on here, AJ, I think we can be satisfied. We did a good takeoff on that first project.
That was the easy one, right?
That was the easy
All
one.
right.
You worried?
It should be pretty good still. That was pretty easy. So moving on to the second one, this is our medium one.
All right.
This
So what
is
do you see here, AJ?
a very popular design, these checkerboards. And I know, Mike, you did a very good class on how to install that. that is a growing trend. You see it in the catalogs for our paver manufacturer partners.
Yeah, they're all over Instagram and Facebook. Everybody seems to want this look, but it's a little more difficult than it might seem at first glance, AJ.
It is. We've done it. It can be done. You can do it. Don't shy away from it. There's going to be waste, right, Mike?
Yeah, you got to account for that in your price. There's going to be a fair amount of waste to get it done correctly. You could hack it and do strips, right? We'll talk about that a little bit.
We've seen that, and that's where, go back to that other class and watch. Mike shows you how to do it. It's done with one piece when it's done the right way, right?
Exactly. We really feel that checkerboard design is going to come out much better. It's going to last longer. It's going to be more even and uniform if you cut it all out of a single piece. If you're trying to do strips, that design, look at that. You got pieces of turf that are going different directions. They appear to be different colors. Those seams don't look good.
It's not going to get paid for in my world. There's no way that someone's cutting a check if you could see the dark green mixed with the light green going. It doesn't look natural or good.
So if you insist on doing strips, you have to cut strips long ways, parallel with the stitching, and you have to cut your strips crossways across the roll in order to have them line up properly when you're doing your actual checkerboard pattern, AJ.
But Mike, when I look at this project that we're on right here, I see quite a bit of steppers there. If we were to do strips, we would be doing an awful lot of seaming.
Right, there's 42 stone there in that one side there, right?
Okay.
If you were to do strips, you'd be talking over 200 individual seams. So
Count me
you're
out.
piecing together all these little pieces, seaming it together. The labor involved, it's just going to take you forever, and it's not going to look right.
Right.
So we gotta come up with a new plan there. One thing, if you insist on doing strips, we recommend making them wider. Staying with something that's maybe 6 to 8 inches wide is going to give you better luck there. But the best way to do it is cut it all out of a single piece. It is so much easier and comes out better in the end.
And that is a sort of a thing, reoccurring theme that keeps coming up. Do we want to have more seams or do we want to have more waste, right?
Or do we want to have a better job?
But that's the key, is the better job overpowers both of those things. So you have to make those considerations, and there will be times where it's advantageous to have more waste and not deal with the seaming. There will be times where it's an easy seam like that first one we showed. I'm not worried about those 4 seams, but what is the best install? And that's what needs to be taken.
All right, so let's figure out the best install here, AJ. If we take a look at this, let's take a look at that big checkerboard inlay first.
Yep.
So that's shown as 8 feet wide.
Okay. Yeah, Kyle should know we have 7.5-foot rolls.
Actually, not his fault. I told him to purposefully make sure he was outside our roll dimensions.
Okay.
But we could go back to him and say, could we change this a little bit? Could we get it to fit within that 7.5-foot roll?
Right. And maybe that would be something that could be done. But when I look at that, if you're going to shave a 1/2 foot off of that to get within our roll, you're going to be minimizing the space between those steppers, right?
Which were already very narrow to begin with.
Right.
Maybe you could go to 2 steppers instead of 3.
There you go.
Right?
There you
Increase
go.
the space in between them even more. So there are some options. You could get a little more creative with your design to get within those roll sizes. But here, we're gonna stick with that 8-foot width.
Stick with what Kyle's given us. So what is nice, while that 8-foot threw me for a little bit of a loop, I like that 33-foot.
Yeah, again, 33-foot roll. So
Got a 15 by 33-foot roll that would look good there.
all right, so if we use a chunk of a 15 by 33-foot roll there, that leaves us with 7 by 33-foot
left
over.
Yeah.
So what can we do with that top part? What can we do with this area up here? Say we're 11.5 by 27, 7 by 33, and if we roll this area out and our blades are going that direction, ideally we'd keep our blades going that same direction up here, AJ.
Well, is that as important now that these 2 pieces of turf aren't touching? If that was getting butted up into that turf, then yeah, we got to keep it all going the same way. Could we get away with rolling that second piece out long ways?
Well, dimensionally you can't, right?
Right.
7 by 33 is not going to cover that. But
Touche.
visually, I think you could, AJ.
Okay.
If they're physically separated, they're not butting up to each other, sure, they're going to look a little bit different, but I don't think it would be such a clash. It wouldn't be so visibly upsetting.
Okay, all right. So let's look at that. We did the 15 by 33-foot roll on that piece with all the steppers, and that left us with 7 by 33 feet for that second piece.
How about this, AJ? What if we did a couple of 7-foot wide strips here? We did 7, that's 7 wide, that's 7 wide. That's going to leave us with, somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 feet, 13 feet left to do. So we got to do 13 more feet. It's 11. We could just get a 7.5 by 25 there, AJ.
That's
if we got a
not bad.
7.5 by 25, we could do 2 more strips, right? 7 and give or take 6. And we've completed that area with all those grass blades going in the right orientation.
Going in the right orientation, making use of that first 15 by 33 foot, that waist, right, or waist, the 7 extra feet, we're able to use that efficiently. And we've got 3 seams up there.
So we really end up with almost no waste in terms of turf, other
Right.
than maybe all those
stepping
stepping stones we cut out
yeah.
of the other section. That's just life. If
Bunch
you want
of
the job to look right, you're going to have to deal with that waste.
100%, 100%. So that does not seem like a bad idea there with the strips, the 7-foot strips, keeping the blade orientation in the right direction.
All right. So another way we could look at this is, kind of your thought that maybe the orientation's not the most important thing because they're separated. They're
Okay.
physically not touching. So we could probably get another 15 by 33
Nice
and
and
do that
easy.
all as one single piece and not have any seams.
Yeah, yeah.
You're going to have more waste, right? We're going to
Well,
have a 3-foot piece left over from that. We're going to have a 7-foot piece left over from that checkerboard area. But we could always roll those up, throw them in the shop, use them on another project.
Yeah, so that would be something to consider. Are you doing a bunch of turf installs this year? Are you going to be able to make use of that? Is it worth, you're going to be paying more for that, right? You're buying more turf, but is it easier? Maybe, I think it might be, but also I want it to be the right job. So I would take a look at that, maybe mock up an area, lay turf going the long way, lay the other turf going the other way, see how that looks, see what the customer thinks, and explain those different decisions and considerations to your customer.
All right, excellent, AJ. Let's take a look at our last and final design. This one is a bit more complicated. We got a putting green, we've got some fairly large areas of turf, we've got some inlay action going on there, AJ.
This is where I take off, Mike.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
Pun.
Bump, bump. All right, so what are we gonna do here, AJ? This design is a little bit overwhelming at first glance.
That is some high quality design work, and I see 3 separate sections. None of them look like easy takeoffs to do. So that first thing that catches my eye, honestly, is that putting green. And as I've seen in the field, nobody wants a rectangle putting green, right? Nobody wants a putting green without fringe. But that looks like an odd shape.
That is an odd shape, and piecing in that fringe would be a nightmare. It would never look right. So I think we've got to kind of figure out how to cut that fringe out of one piece.
I agree.
Again, going to lead to waste, but it's going to give us the right appearance. If you're spending $100,000 on your backyard, you don't want a goofy, hacked up, angled fringe all over the place, right?
And we've played with that. We've done a lot of work internally with putting greens. The putting green we know has to be one piece, right? We don't want to be seaming a putting green. If this guy's a serious golfer, I can get pretty good with a seam, but not good enough to not upset his ball when it's driving
And those
across
golfers are really picky about
They're
that kind
finicky
of
about
stuff.
that, right? And then the seam around that putting green, yeah, I agree. You can't do a collage patchwork around that.
Right,
It's
we're
not gonna fly.
already trying to get a very nice seam between the putting green and the fringe itself.
Okay.
So if we're trying to match up both the putting green and the fringe itself
Right.
and multiple pieces of fringe,
Right.
it's never going to look right.
Okay, so let's
Well,
put that.
Hold on for
Yeah.
a minute. Yeah, you said the first thing you noticed was the putting green.
Yeah.
First thing I noticed on that diagram was it was fenced all the way around.
Okay.
There were a lot of obstacles.
You're using your checklist, Mike. Look
Yep,
at you.
Look at that. We're not going to get a monster roll of turf back into that job site in one piece and be able to maneuver it around and turn it. So we got to plan ahead and potentially cut some pieces ahead of time, maybe seam ahead of time before we take them into that backyard.
I'd be interested to see what that front driveway looks like and how much room they had there for laying this out, cutting out pieces that we're going to map out and know that we're going to need in the interest of getting them back there.
All right, so going back to this layout here, AJ, what do you want to tackle first?
Not that putting green. So let's start on the left side of that project.
All right, that monster L-shaped area of turf,
Big
right?
old piece, yeah.
So we're, I see here, we're 14.9, so we're 15 feet wide. That
Thank
actually
you,
fits pretty
Kyle.
well in a 15-foot wide piece of turf,
Great.
right? And down here, I see we're 61 feet long. So, I don't know, AJ, what if we took a 15 by 100 and we used a 15 by 61 foot piece right here?
Okay.
All right? So that means that our grass blades are potentially going that direction. I would certainly cut that piece out before I bring it into the backyard.
Yeah, agreed.
You're not going to be, cutting flush up against that fence with 33 feet of turf rolled up there.
Right.
All right, so that leaves us with what? We got 39 feet of turf left over.
39 by 15, right?
All right, so we got 39 feet. We got to finish this, and we want to keep the blade orientation going the same way.
Have
so
to here.
I got 39 feet. What's 50? What's 60 minus our 15? That's 45.
Yep.
So we got 45 left here. And I got 39 by 15. So 45, that's going to lend itself pretty nicely to potentially 3 15-foot sections here, right?
Okay.
So 15, 15, 15. That would keep
right.
our blades all going the same direction. And we would need a piece that's about 14, a piece that's about 14, and a piece that's about 10. So 14, 14, 10. We're at 38 feet. We got 39 feet.
Not
Cutting it a little
bad.
close, but I think
Not
we can make
bad.
it work.
Okay, and Mike, that looks good to me. Those seams, again, those don't look like seams that would be that intimidating to do. And there are 3 of them, right?
Right, so we got 3 seams. They're relatively small pieces and shorter pieces, so we should be able to maneuver them into place, get everything lined up pretty nicely. One of the things that does concern me is, doing a design where you would have to maybe create a long seam. If we used 2 7.5 by 50s here.
Right.
Yeah, well, I messed up there. It would be up here.
But I could tell you, I see what you're getting at.
Right, we'll
That
redraw
long
that.
seam is going to be, I would say, challenging, if not borderline impossible to execute.
Right, so 60 feet. Think about it. If you're off by even the tiniest bit of an angle when you start, you'll be 2 inches off by the time you get to the other end.
And
So
you
getting
will
this
be,
all lined
right?
up is pretty
Yeah,
tough.
yeah.
So if we can kind of go with shorter seams when possible, that will be advantageous for us.
So I like that. I don't know if Kyle set that up for us so nicely, but that fits pretty well. And those seams, like I said, those are not challenging or curveball seams.
Well,
really.
what's cool is that with all the different roll size options that we offer,
Yeah.
it's easy to find something that's going to work, or at least sort of easy.
Yeah, easier on that first one, right? Okay, so now we've tackled that L shape, and we've got 2 more pieces of turf that we have to kind of figure out here. Neither one looks like a very easy thing to figure
All
out.
right, let's conquer your fears, AJ. Let's go for the
Get
putting
straight
green
in the
next.
putting green. All right.
So the putting green itself looks like it's 14.4 by 19.3.
Okay.
Conveniently, we sell a 15 by 25 foot putting green, so we can get that putting green cut out of a single piece, and that's really key.
It's of monumental importance that we're not seaming the putting green itself. Mike's good, but even Mike is a little nervous about seaming a putting green.
Yeah, I mean, I can make a seam that looks okay, but if you're spending the money to build a putting green, you don't want a seam that looks okay.
Right,
You want
right.
a seam that looks great, and that's really hard to do with a putting green. So try your best to design your putting green where that putting green surface is one single piece. We have a 7.5 by 25 and a 15 by 25 for the putting green.
Now, in that same conversation, Mike, I don't necessarily want to be seaming the fringe a bunch of times, but we could get away with a seam in the fringe, correct?
Certainly. You don't want to be putting 8 or 10 pieces together to
Right,
try to get
right,
this
right.
all around your putting green, but the dimensions here are too large for a single piece, right? We're going to start with a 15 by 33,
Okay.
but a 15 by 33 is probably only going to get us to about here, AJ.
But that isn't bad based off what I've seen in the field and what we've been able to execute. That is a seam that we could do, and I don't know, we don't have much left, right?
We're going to come in with maybe a 7.5 by 20
Okay.
foot piece, right?
Yeah.
So if we did a 15 by 33 here, and then this was maybe 7.5 by 20, we can get that completely surrounded. We're only going to have 2 seams in the fringe. And
Yeah.
in fact, we would seam that beforehand. We would put those pieces together, seam it, let it sit overnight. So we essentially had a single piece when we go to cut our putting green shape out of it.
All right, so that is the key. You want to get to that. So even though we tackled that left side first, maybe what you'd be doing on this job is tackling that putting green first. Give yourself time. Let that seam cure, let that glue set up, and have your permanent bond so that we could lay that over and cut the putting green out of that fringe piece.
All right, and again, you'll note that we kept our blades all going, that same direction.
I do like
right?
that. I do like
Well,
that.
it actually should be this way to match the other turf. So Uh-oh, went the wrong way. There we are. So we'd go that direction, make sure we match our turf. Then we have this inlay area here, AJ. So looking at that, my first thought would be to tell the homeowner they got to pick something else.
Yeah. Very complicated. The checkerboard is one thing, but Kyle is getting very creative with this here.
You better be a knife master.
Dialed
You're gonna
in.
be cutting for days there.
Yeah.
But it does look pretty cool, and we have to do it, AJ.
Looks
so
sweet.
let's figure out how we're going to accomplish this.
All right, so what size, well, we've already got what we need other than this piece. And what do we have left, if anything?
So this whole area is 15 by 14. And
I've got an idea, Mike, but
what do you got?
I don't think it's the right idea. I'm thinking 50. We have a 15 by 33 piece. That would encompass that, and that would keep us all at one piece, right?
Yeah, that would be good.
There's going to be some waste.
We could do a 15 by 33 there. We'd use about half of it.
Right.
Right? It would be a single piece, but we would be cutting out a fair amount of material. It's definitely a good option.
Okay.
We could also look at using a piece of maybe 7.5 by 30, right?
Okay.
We would have, we need 7.5 by 20 for our putting green. So if we had that leftover piece from a 7.5 by 50 foot roll, we could use it in 2 sections, right?
Okay.
So we could seam that together, get ourselves essentially a 15 by 15 foot piece.
Right.
And then cut out our inlay. Spend a lot of time cutting out our inlay.
Yeah.
But we could get it done.
Yeah. Well, and so that goes back to the philosophical debate. 2 rolls or less waste, but 1 seam, or more waste and no seams. Up for debate, depends on the budget on this project.
All right, so if we take a look, I'll go back to this one even though it's all marked up. We're looking at a 15 by 100 to do that large area, a 15 by 33 to work on that putting green area.
The fringe, yep.
Fringe, and then a 7.5 by 50 to finish off our putting green and do that inlay area, right?
That should cover us.
Right, and then we got the 15 by 25 putting green. So I think we've managed to figure out a setup that works. Now, we've shown you some scenarios that work pretty well. This doesn't mean it's the only way to do your takeoff, AJ. A different orientation could work, and it could work just as well.
Yeah, and oftentimes if I'm helping a contractor try to do the takeoff, I'll take it and bounce it off Mike or one of our other smart guys, and I'll have an idea, and Mike has a different idea. His is usually more efficient. Mine is sometimes equally as efficient. So there's more than one ways to tackle this, but we like to make sure that we're taking everything into consideration for the planning stage so that we know what we're going to do when we go out there to execute.
All right, AJ, so let's work on the accessories here, right?
Okay.
What are you thinking for seam tape? It looks like we've got a 14-foot seam, maybe a 10-foot seam, so we're at 24 feet, another 8, we're at 32, we got a 20-foot seam, we're at 52, and we got a 15-foot seam, we're at 67, give or take.
Yeah, so you're
really not that much seam.
It's really not, and that's the advantage of those smaller seams, right? You're not getting that much seam in terms of linear footage. So yeah, you're still in that one roll of 100-foot seam tape.
All right, so 67 feet. We probably want to get 4 tubes of glue, maybe 5 to
There
be
you go.
safe.
Give them 5.
All right. Now, square footage-wise, you good at differential calculus? You going to figure out the exact square footage there, AJ?
I did give myself a little cheat sheet advantage here. So we found that there's 1,600 square foot of turf put down there.
And that's a general estimate, right? You don't have to be exact on your estimate for the infill. Doesn't go bad. Again, throw that in your shop. It's not going to harden up or go bad. You can use it on your next turf job. So about 1,600 square feet of turf.
Okay.
Is premium or classic?
We're saying it's premium,
but
not all of it's premium because that putting green isn't premium.
That is true. All right, so we got how much square footage on that putting green, AJ?
Well, we had 15 by 25, right?
All right, give or take.
Yeah.
It's a little bit smaller than that.
Yeah.
So what, maybe 250 square feet for a putting green?
Okay, and the putting green, we should have saved this for a pool question, but we're closer to 1 pound per square foot with the putting green.
Or less, right?
Or less.
Putting green's typically 1/4 to 1 pound of infill per square foot. Really depends on how fast you want that ball to roll. You put more infill in, ball rolls faster, right,
Okay,
AJ?
yeah.
So if you're Tiger Woods,
Yeah.
you want that 1 pound in there. Now, what infill are we going to use?
So the only infill that can be used on that putting green is the beige because of the the mesh size,
And
correct?
what's the mesh size? The gradation, how big the
Tell me,
particles
Mike.
are, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So we need the beige sand has smaller particles, drops down into that weave of the turf surface much better than any of the other particles. So don't use green or Zeo white on your putting green surface.
Okay.
All right, so let's backtrack. We said we had about 1,600 square feet of turf.
Yep.
But that was including the putting green, so we're down to what, 1,350 or so?
Yep.
1,350 premium turf,
Premium turf. We'll
3 pounds per square foot.
call it 3 pounds per square foot.
All right, so what are we talking? We're almost 4,000 pounds of turf infill there, right?
Divided by those 50-pound bags, right?
Yep. Need about 80 bags.
Sounds right to me.
So give or take 80 bags for the turf,
Yep.
right? So we could use beige, green, or Zeo white.
Yep.
And then how much for that putting green? We're talking about 1 pound per square foot, 250 square feet.
I like that.
You can do that math,
Yeah,
right?
We'll call it 250.
So 5 bags of beige infill for the putting green. All right, what about those spikes? We did skip over the spikes.
Right. So we did that. It was 1,600 square foot of turf, and Mike had that simple formula: 1,600 times 0.7, right?
All right, AJ. How about 1120?
1120.
All right, excellent. Good math, AJ.
Thank you.
So we have 1,120 spikes. We need probably 2 boxes of spikes.
Okay.
What about that putting green, though? We don't use spikes in the putting green.
Right. So we're doing finishing nails, right?
We use finishing nails, 3.5-inch finishing nails for that putting green surface there. So you probably want to get yourself, maybe 5 pounds of finish nails for that putting green area. Is that good?
Now, well, it seems like it. I looked through my checklist. We've taken everything into consideration, taken layout, rolls, obstructions. Yeah, we've orientation. I think we've covered all our bases here, Mike.
All right, excellent. So you want to summarize what we just talked about, AJ? That was a lot.
That was a lot.
Got my head spinning here.
Yeah. So in summary, a couple things to remember. We're going to make it easy for you. We're sharing this checklist with you. Take this out, study this, use this as a tool. It's a very, very comprehensive checklist that we've developed here at Alliance. Second thing to remember is there is more than one way to do almost every job. Unless it's a straight 7.5 by 50 foot rectangle, then there's only one way to do it, right? Well, technically there's more than one way to do that, but there's always more than one way to attack this. Let's, in the planning stage, figure out which is going to make the most sense in terms of seams, in terms of waist, and in terms of roll sizes.
And potentially tailor your job to fit the appropriate sizes that we offer and save you a little bit of headache down the road.
When possible, that is great. If you can use the roll sizes we have and make the job make sense with that, great. If you can't, we will know that there will probably be a little bit more waste, right?
And a little bit more work to seam it and get it all to fit together.
Okay.
Knowing that, remember that a preset waste factor isn't appropriate. You can't just say, I've got 500 square feet of turf, order me 550, order me 600, I'll be good.
Yeah. Not going to work. So there's too many things to consider when you're trying to figure that out. So we're going to look at that job and we're going to map it out roll by roll, piece by piece.
And your waste could range anywhere from 5% to 75%.
Yeah,
so
on that second one,
right?
Yeah, there's going to be a ton of waste,
All right. And then remember that turf takes time. If it takes your crew a day to lay 1,000 square feet of pavers, you realize it's going to take a day for them to lay 1,000 square feet of turf, too.
Right. It's a misconception that this is just something we're throwing down on the ground, rolling out, and spiking. Obviously, if you've watched the first 2 courses, there's more to it than that. The cutting, it's the seaming, it's the obstructions. So turf takes time. Remember that when you're going out there and tackling these jobs if this is new to you.
All right. So, Logan, did we have any questions roll in while we were going through those 3 turf takeoff scenarios?
We got quite a few here, guys. So just kind of starting from the earliest and working our way down. Base and edging. In a frozen state like Minnesota, what holds up the longest?
Frozen state like Minnesota. Well, I don't know. Freeze thaw is obviously powerful, right? Glaciers carved the earth. Water created the Grand Canyon. We need to account for several different things when we design a project, and one of those is drainage, right?
Right.
You're putting down 1,000 square feet of turf. What, you get a couple inches of rain on 1,000 square feet, all that water's got to go somewhere, right?
Has to.
So we got to have proper pitch on our jobs, maybe incorporate plastic drain grates and things. but whatever construction methodology you're using for pavers is perfectly acceptable for turf. So if you're using a dense graded base, use that stone dust as a setting bed, that's great.
Yep.
If you're a proponent of that hybrid base, you can certainly do hybrid base underneath turf. Again, use that 1/4-inch chip instead of 3/8-inch chip for your setting bed, and account for some alternative means to glue, nail, or staple your turf down, because those spikes aren't going to hold in clean stone, AJ.
Right, right.
So realistically, I think that any of those methods are just as appropriate for a freeze-thaw climate as a non-freeze-thaw climate.
And as long as you're addressing drainage. Right?
That's always key, right?
Getting water
Water's our
off.
enemy,
Right,
whether
right.
it's pavers, polymeric sand, or a long-lasting turf job.
Yep.
What else, Logan?
I've got Tyler asking if sometimes more seams are better, due to blade orientation.
Definitely.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
If I had a choice between turning my turf 90 degrees and having one seam, or turning it and having the correct blade orientation and having 3 seams, I'd be doing 3 seams all day long, AJ.
I'll take it a step further. It's not even up for debate. It just has to be done. You can't get away. You're not going to get paid if that turf looks ridiculous because it's oriented wrong. The 3 seams shouldn't scare you. We're making sure that the seams are not as long or as small as possible, and taking that into consideration, we can teach you how to seam. It's not that hard, but you can't get away with the blades going in the wrong direction.
All right. What else, Logan?
We've got one asking if dealing with slopes needs to be taken into account when doing a takeoff.
Definitely. So we're dealing with a slope.
Okay.
At a certain point, erosion really becomes a concern, AJ.
Yeah,
What's going to keep that setting bed material or base material from washing out underneath the turf? Well, you might need to incorporate geogrid, some fabrics, maybe even geocells underneath your turf to keep it in place on a very steep slope. And by steep slope, we're talking about where it starts to become like uncomfortable to walk on, right?
Sure,
Beyond
sure.
maybe 10%.
Yeah, yeah.
What else, Logan?
Dan is asking if directional install is so important, why not print directional arrows on the back of the turf?
I don't know, because they don't print anything on the back of the turf. We wanted to put gator faces on the back of our turf, and they said they couldn't do it. So,
Dan, if you call your local Alliance rep, we'll get a Sharpie. I'll come draw them on for you, depending on where you're at. But that's a fair question. But
AJ's going to show up with a black Sharpie on the back of the turf
I got a
there
white
and
one.
draw
Yeah.
arrows for you. All right, what else, Logan?
Dustin is asking, how much should we be charging per square foot?
As much as you can get. Realistically, very similar to what you're charging for pavers, right? If you're installing a paver that's $4 or $5 a square foot, that's going to be the ballpark of what you should charge for an artificial turf install. Obviously, something that's square and very easy with no seams could be a little bit less. Something that's complicated, like that advanced design we just saw with a lot of waste on the inlay, a lot of time cutting it out, doing all that work for the putting green, it's going to cost a lot more.
$5 isn't going to cover that. So the reality is there's no blanket statement, but like Mike said, close to what you're getting for pavers, but then take the
Difficulty
project
into account, right?
consideration. Yep.
All right, Logan, anything else?
I got quite a few more.
We'll keep going.
Renee is asking, how much extra are you leaving on the roll for straightening and stretching?
How much extra? Well, we're not leaving any extra, because when we actually stretch it out, we'll end up with a little bit more, right? So we're cutting off to the dimension that we want. If we stretch it, we might need to trim a little bit, but it's not really stretching the turf out very much, AJ. It's kind of just eliminating wrinkles, right? We're
Correct.
making sure that it's not going to bunch up over time.
And Mike, you taught me that too. This isn't like, let me use that carpet kicker to stretch this.
Yeah,
as
we're not
far
having a
as I can.
contest to see who's stronger,
It's
right?
not tug of war. We are just moving that turf all in one direction to get those wrinkles out so that we have a nice snug install.
All right. It's always good to lay your turf out in the sun,
Right.
kind of unroll it, let it relax before you do your install there.
And that goes back to that job site access. I've found on the larger jobs, even with a 15 by 33 foot roll, it's nice to have a place like the driveway or somewhere where we can lay this out, both for letting it relax and for cutting it out.
Yeah,
dragging
kind
it
of
back.
roughing it into size.
Yep.
What else, Logan?
Diana is asking, straight seams or wave-like seams for making them easier to do and blend in?
All right, so
Great
straight
question.
or wave-like seams. You see those guys on the videos that do those wavy seams?
I see
They
'em.
make it look like magic.
They do.
I've tried it, and I can't do it.
I don't believe anything I see on the internet, including this, Mike.
So there's templates for making an S pattern with both sides of your turf for the seam. There are people that do it freehand, and they've got more skill at artificial turf than I do. I think with anything, the more you do it, the better you get at it. So doing an S pattern seam can certainly work
Sure.
if you have the skill. If you don't have the skill, doing a straight seam is a heck of a lot easier. Anyone can learn a straight seam in a couple tries.
I was going to say, as a guy who doesn't have a lot of skill, I've done a fair share of straight seams. They've gotten better to the point where now I'm very confident on a professional install coming out and working with the contractors and teaching you how to do a straight seam. I've never tried the S one. I get easily intimidated by that.
And remember, you want to seam edge to edge, right? Parallel with those rows of stitching.
Right.
That's nice and easy to do. If you get into butt seams or a butt seam, the end of the roll to the side of a roll, those are a whole lot harder to hide. You really can't make one invisible. So that's where that S pattern, template or S pattern cut might be a better option if you have to do a butt seam.
Or you could go back to that checklist and really work on the layout and the design.
And avoid it altogether?
And figure out how to not do a butt seam.
Good advice, AJ.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else, Logan?
We've got Nicholas asking, for the fringe, would all the extra be wasted, considering, you're cutting that putting green out of one big piece of turf?
Yeah, well, if someone wants a putting green, then they're going to pay up for it, right,
Yeah,
AJ?
yeah, and it depends on what else you got. I mean, obviously, if it's some kidney oblong-shaped putting green, you're going to have to get pretty creative to use that piece that was cut out. Maybe you could use strips of that somewhere on a smaller area. But yeah, it is going to be waste. Same with the checkerboard. No way around it. There's going to be an immense amount of waste on these things.
But there's ways you could reuse that stuff, right?
Agreed,
So,
agreed.
that weird kidney bean shape of turf that you cut out to do the fringe for your putting green, maybe you can sell that to someone as a play area for their kids,
There
right?
you go,
Do
there
some
you go.
landscaping
Yep.
around it, nice kidney bean shape. There's always a way to reuse your turf. It doesn't go bad. You can store it and find a use for it down the road.
And you saw, and I think it was that third example that we did, Mike, when you had fringed the one putting green, and you had used a 7.5 by 25 foot roll, we were able to use the remainder of that up on the top part.
That's right.
So-
We did that inlay with it.
and that's where the layout goes. It goes back to how important that layout is.
All right, keep them coming, Logan.
For you.
All right.
Renee is asking, what about sod staples for the fringe? Is that applicable?
Good question. So we're trying to get our turf held down, keep it in place, keep it stretched out. 6-inch non-galvanized spiral Gator X turf nails are the best option, really the only option, AJ. It's got a small enough head that it fits in between the rows of the grass blades. You use that spike that you use for your hardscape edging. It's going to leave a visible, divot or depression as it spreads those blades apart.
Or hundreds of visible and that sod staple, if you try to drive that into the compacted stone base and the stone dust, you're going to find out very quickly that that's not going to work.
Right, you're going to get a corkscrew. It's not going to drive into the ground. Really impossible to do. So sod staples aren't going to work, Logan.
Mohammed is asking, what is the best solution for freeze and thaw cycle in Canada and for edging? I know we kind of answered that a little bit earlier, but maybe reiterate.
Well, any of the options will work, right? You can simply spike down your edge into your dense graded base. You can nail it or screw it down to a ledger board, buried treated lumber or a composite board, or we can trench in some concrete, do some extreme edge that we can glue our turf down to. I think that, more than the anchoring mechanism, it's the overall construction of your project that's going to determine your success or failure in a freeze-thaw environment. So we're doing 4 to 6 inches of base, here in New Jersey.
Yep.
Up in Canada, they don't do 4 to 6 inches of base for any project,
anything,
right?
yeah,
It's 6 to 8 inches for a walkway. It's 12 to 16 for a driveway.
Right.
So you might be doing a more substantial construction. Hybrid base, when done correctly, is a great idea for freeze-thaw climates, right?
Right. And I do like, Mike, that extreme edge and gluing the turf to that on the border is a great install. Kicks it up a notch. I think the turf spikes are fine, but if you're really concerned about that, taking some of those other methods into consideration.
All right, keep them coming, Logan. We got a couple more, I think.
Yep. Brandon is asking, what is the square footage rate for calculating number of 3.5-inch finish nails for putting greens?
Oh, that's a good question. I would buy one box for every 50 square feet. Now, how many you're going to put in is, questionable. Sometimes it takes a lot. If you've got to kind of pull out your putting green, if you've got some contours to it, some slope, you're going to be putting an awful lot of finish nails in that turf. It's almost going to look like a pincushion when you're done with it.
Right.
They're so small. A 3.5-inch finish nail is not much, right?
Not much, yeah.
We got to get those finish nails in there. We're probably going to put them like every 6 inches in a grid pattern. So let them rust into the ground and keep that putting green in place. All right. Couple more, Logan?
What is your technique to cut out the checkerboards perfectly?
Well, take a look, go to the Gator Studio portal. You can watch our class on cutting that out, but you can do a template. You could actually, design something and make a template out of cardboard or a piece of polyplastic.
Yep.
But cut from the back there, or you can simply put your turf down, put your stepping stones on top, and carefully trim from the top. Pros and cons to both approaches. We went over that in our other show.
I'm a big fan of the template on the back. I do believe that that's the best solution, but that requires more planning, taking a bunch into consideration, cutting from the back, and then sending up a prayer when you go to drag that turf into place. So.
All right.
Last one we got here. Nick is asking, how do most people charge for the waste? It's kind of a interesting one.
How do you charge for the waste? I think you just got to figure out through, going through this checklist, how much turf you're going to need, right?
Right.
You figure out all of the supplies you're going to need. You figure out your labor rate, estimating your overhead and all of those things that come into consideration. It might take a little bit more thought and a little bit more time with the pen and paper than a paver install that you're used to, but you've got to run through all those costs and charge appropriately.
And explain, use communication, explain to the customer there's going to be waste on this checkerboard, or there's going to be a lot of waste on this putting green, but it's all going to be one piece. This is how we do it. This is why we do it.
And you're going to get a better installation.
And if you don't want to pay for it, I'll give you the leftover, the waste that we have. Put in your basement.
All right. Oh, that was a lot of questions.
Good questions.
Excellent.
Good questions.
Thank you for sending those questions over. A lot more fun when everybody's throwing stuff out there for us.
What about that homework you talked about?
Yeah, we're going to throw
Mike?
something out to them now.
There you go.
So we've got a little homework assignment. It's a pretty cool design. It's got some challenges. We're going to do a putting green. We're going to do a little bit of inlay. We've got some larger areas of turf here that we're talking about. So I think they've got their work cut out for them to figure out how many rolls of turf they're going to need, what sizes, the quantity of seam tape, glue, nails, infill.
Well, I think everyone saw you help carry me through those first three, so they don't have you, Mike, to help them out. So take a look, take into consideration all the things we talked about, send that back and be entered for the raffle. And then I'd remind you that when you guys are out there and you're hardscape guys, your Alliance sales reps, working with them for poly sand, resin sand, sealers and cleaners, utilize us for turf too. We want you guys to understand this and know how to do this so that you can make money, but we're also a resource for you. So call on us. Let us help with your takeoff. Let us help with the installation.
All right, so as we send you off, you're going to go to a page that allows you to download that homework assignment. You can print it out. You can mark it up, come up with your takeoff list. You can go back to that landing page to upload it to us or simply tell us what sizes you're going to use. And if you do that, we'll enter you in a raffle to win a cool Alliance cooler, as well as have one of our reps reach out to discuss the takeoff that you submitted and talk about the X-Turf lineup.
What if they get the answer wrong, Mike? Are they still entered?
They're still entered.
What a guy.
You get points for trying.
This guy's amazing. Awesome, awesome. Well, we appreciate your time. We appreciate you joining us this time of the year. Stay tuned. Check out the other classes and reach out to your Alliance rep. Let us know how we can help.